Good afternoon, councillors and staff. Call the special meeting of council. Declare it open. The City of Swan disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Where an application for approval or licence or the like is considered or determined during this meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor any other person or body should rely upon that discussion or determination until written notice of either an approval and the conditions which relate to it or the refusal of that application has been issued by the City. Conditions of entry: no electronic, visual or audio recording or transmitting device or instrument is permitted to be used. A person who breaches this provision of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law 2015 would be immediately required to leave the premises. Attendance's apologies. Assume Councillor Jones is running late. The only other apologies.
Councillor Richardson's also not in
Councillor Richardson's not here as yet.
Apology.
Yep. And Councillor Brodovnik is an apology, and councillors on that note and staff, if anyone is not aware, Councillor Brodovnik lost her mother on Friday, who sadly passed away after an illness. On behalf of everybody at the City, we send our condolences to Councillor Brodovnik and her family, and our thoughts and prayers are with them at this sad time. Declaration of financial and proximity interests and interests affecting impartiality, Mr CEO.
None, Mr Mayor.
Public question time. At this point in time, I have nil. Deputations. There is only one to come at a later stage. Members' questions. Number of questions from Councillor Johnson. Councillors, you've seen those questions and answers. Councillor Johnson, you've also received those answers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. They're quite important to the proceedings.
Okay, can anyone see if our deputy has arrived? She has not arrived? Okay, can you let me know if she does, and then we can slot her in at a later stage. Okay, it's now council to item 8.1, 5 individual motions there. Councillor Johnson, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mr
Councillor
Mayor.
Johnson, before you carry on, sorry, there's one other thing. Councillors, given that we have an agenda forum commencing at 5:30, if this meeting is not completed by 5:30, we will be adjourning. So, sorry, Councillor Johnson, carry on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, my motion is that Council resolve to resume the full City of Swan meeting procedures local law for the reason there is no reason not to do so, now that the State Government has moved to Phase 4 of the emergency restrictions roadmap.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? There is. Thank you. Wish to debate it, councillors? Councillor Johnston, if you'd open the debate.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is actually quite an important decision we're making just here. I was very surprised last Wednesday at the briefing that there seemed to be no plan for Council to resume normal business. I waited for the agenda on Friday and still I found no response to the COVID Phase 4 de-restrictions. And hence, councillors, we're having a special meeting. Councillors, to resume normal business using an OCM agenda requires a report or motion prepared 7 weeks prior to the ordinary meeting of council, at which the decision is to be made. That decision will take effect 4 weeks later, assuming it is approved. So the total lead time is 11 weeks. We would be looking at resuming normal business on the 21st of October if we put this on the agenda for the August meeting. We couldn't possibly wait that long. Councillors, back in the real world, at least in Western Australia, most businesses are returning to normal. My state government workplace went back to normal business on Monday, just as it was prior to COVID. No changes whatsoever. Okay, people over 70 and over 65 with medical conditions can work from home, and I can work from home if I want to, but the rule is your normal workplace is the office, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, 37.5 hours a week, including meetings. My volunteer firefighting brigade resumed normal business on the 27th of June when the Phase 4 was put into place. I also heard that the Department of Health workers are back at work, having been told, well, if the hospitals are working normally, you office workers need to go back to work as well. As a council, we need to get back to normal business immediately, or we are letting down the community, and frankly, councillors, we're taking fees that are not justified for these reduced hours. Many people have lost their jobs, or on JobKeeper, and there is a substantial economic emergency going on here, and the idea of this council working on reduced hours and taking the same amount of money is outrageous. We've seen briefings cancelled, we've seen place meetings cancelled, committee meetings cancelled, yet other workplaces have continued without a hiccup. Councillors, the closure and restriction directions number 5 that took effect on the 26th of June I've got that document just here. This is the document. So this is the emergency restriction document that is currently in effect. Councillors, it limits workplaces to 1 person per 2 square metres. There's no 1.5 metre limit in the document at all. I've asked the CEO if he can find a 1.5 metre limit in it, and the only mention of 1.5 metre distance between people is in beauty parlours. This is not a beauty parlour. Far from it. This council chamber, as you will see in the questions, can accommodate 68 people under the current gathering directions, which are in force right now. So, councillors, you can't get 68 people in here in a normal meeting. We can continue as normal. We can fit about 45 people in the public gallery, or we could, but I don't think we ever have that many chairs. It's more than there are there normally. Now, councillors, I want to move on to the 2-hour limit. There's no 2-hour limit in the closure and restriction directions. Nothing in here at all about 2 hours. Absolutely nothing. I asked a question with due notice in section 10.2 on the 1st of July asking for medical advice about the 2-hour limit, but I did not get a satisfactory response. I put the same question in the questions I sent in this morning, or rather late last night. Same result. No answer. Did not get a satisfactory answer from a medical professional who's authorised to give this kind of advice. Councillors, this 2-hour limit doesn't apply anywhere, doesn't apply in my workplace. I understand the CEO has got this from some contact tracing rules, but that's for contact tracing. And councillors, if our meetings last for 2 hours exactly, that means that rule applies. Councillors, it's for contact tracing. It's got nothing to do with the duration of your meeting. And as it says in the questions, no other council has put this 2-hour limit in place. So, councillors, we're in an extraordinary situation here. So we really need to get back to work.
In 1 minute, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no longer any reason to limit deputations, public statements, council meetings, committee meetings, or anything whatsoever to 2 hours. So this is why I'm proposing restoring our meeting procedures local law. Councillors, we need to get back to the normal work of council, listening to the community, asking questions and making decisions. Councillors, I suggest you vote for this motion, councillors, because the community won't tolerate another 11 weeks of this. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Catalano is the seconder.
Question?
Question, Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, and a question to Councillor Johnson. Can you just explain to me how you get the 11 weeks you say before we can go back to normal meetings? Thank you.
Well, unless you had another special meeting. So basically, my understanding is it would work like this. If I wanted to put a motion on notice for the next meeting, I need to give it 3 weeks in advance, do I not? And then
15 days.
15 days, 3 weeks, so it's 3 weeks. So then we have the meeting, and at that meeting it actually might be 7 weeks and not 11 weeks. At that meeting we make a decision, and then it's at the next meeting that it takes effect. So it might be 7 weeks. I may have over-engineered it, but it is a long time, and councillors, we need to get moving immediately. So if it's September or October, whichever way, it's too late. That's my view. It's going to be embarrassing.
Further question? Councillor McCulloch.
Councillor Congleton, then.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Congleton. I thought.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if Councillor Johnson just could enlighten me to which page that we signed that refers to the number of hours we have to commit to council for the remuneration that's received. I'm unaware of we have to do a 40-hour week or a 60-hour week or a 90-hour month or a 100-hour year. Could you direct me to which page you got that from?
Well, council, I think it's usual practice that prior to COVID starting, we were doing at least 4 hours a meeting.
Follow-up question. It's not the usual practice. I asked you if it's possible to tell me where you got the information from, in which document, that it states we have to do certain hours for the remuneration paid.
Well, Mr Mayor, that's not what I said at all. This is an absolute classic of Councillor Congleton. He's asking a question that's got nothing to do with what I said. What I said was we've reduced our working time by 50% and we've cancelled a lot of meetings. There is an expectation out there in the community that we get back to normal work. There are people out there who have lost their jobs, who are working short hours, who have less money, and here we are taking the same amount of money for 50% or less of the work. That is the problem.
Yeah. Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Along the lines of Councillor Congleton's, but Councillor Johnson, you did state working on reduced hours for the same amount of money. I'd like further clarification there, please.
What's the question?
I'd just like you to clarify that we as councillors who are on an allowance and not a salary, that we are working on reduced hours for the same amount of money, how you equate that. I'd just like further clarification. Thank you.
I think I've already answered that one. Look, prior to the COVID restrictions coming in, council meetings ran for 4 hours. Now they run for 2 hours. It's that simple. And likewise, we've had briefings cancelled, we've had committee meetings cancelled, we've had place meetings cancelled, agenda forums have been reduced. There seems to be a general reduction in activity. We may not be working on a 37.5-hour week, but there is an expectation out there in the community that we are pulling our weight. And the idea of reducing our hours, restricting meetings, restricting deputations does not meet community expectations. That's really what I'm saying. I think we need to get back to work because remember the state of Western Australia has got back to work. That's what the Stage 5 Gathering Directions says.
Further question, Councillor.
Further question. Thank you, Mr Mayor. And Councillor Johnson, we talk about a reduction of activity and saying I think we need to get back to work. I'd like clarification around that because outside of our meetings and some of our specific committee meetings, obviously there's a lot more for an elected member to do. So what are we not getting back to work with some of that?
Well, you might not be getting back to work, but I am. So at the weekend, I went along to a morning tea organised by Cassie Rowe for members of the Hazelmere Progress Association and the South Guildford Association. Quite a lot of people attended. Nobody was worried about 2-hour rules. Nobody was worried about social distancing because everybody knew those rules don't apply. And then on Monday, I went along to the annual general meeting of the Stratton Community Association. Same thing happened there. People turned up. We even had a Liberal Party candidate turned up. So I'm back to work. And the reason we're back to work is because on the 27th of June, the gathering directions changed. They said that it's okay to go back to work. Most workplaces in WA, if they can do so, and nearly all of them can, are back to work. Including other councils, we cannot continue with this restriction of activity any longer. Councillors, it is a huge disappointment to people out there in the community who've lost their jobs, who are on reduced income, to have councillors not doing the hours and earning the same amount of money. Call it fees or whatever you want, it's the same amount of money.
One more question, Mr Mayor. Councillor Johnson saying I might not be myself getting back to work, but you are. How do you know what definitions of elected members are and what people are doing in regards to getting back to work?
Council, I think you should know that's in Section 2.10 of the Local Government Act. So I think that says that an elected member is there to represent the interests of the electors, ratepayers and residents of the community. And I think you're also there to provide leadership to the community. And by getting back to work, you'll be providing leadership. And that means doing your job as a councillor. You're also there to act as a conduit of communication between the community and council. And for instance, me going along to the Hazelmere Progress Association meeting, South Guildford Association meeting and Stratton Association meeting in the last few days is the kind of thing that we should be doing. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. It's back to normal business. The community associations are back to normal business. Work is back to normal business. Other councils are back to normal business, so we should be too.
Thank you, Councillor. I think you've more than answered. Councillor McNamara, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's through you to Councillor Johnson again. Councillor Johnson, you mentioned the community lots and lots of times and the expectations of the community. Can you define the community for me?
the councillor, Section 2.1 defines the people that you're there to represent the interests of. That is the electors, the residents and the ratepayers. So if you want a legalistic definition, that's it. But basically it's everybody who lives in our city.
Right, Councillor, my apologies, Councillor Johnson. Can you please then inform me how many of those people personally requested, how many of those of the community that you are just after describing have actually requested the change back to what was not the original format of our meetings, but one that was judged or decided by this particular organisation. So can you please explain to me how many requests, either official or unofficial, you received from the community, as you call them, to have this particular change returned? And is it the community's request or your personal request?
Well, Councillor, first of all, I think it's Section 2.10 B of the Local Government Act that says that councillors are expected to provide a leadership role. And by proposing this special meeting, I am exercising that leadership role. 5 of us exercised that leadership role. Now, when I discussed the need for us to get back to work with the Hazelmere Progress Association, the South Guildford Residents Association and the Stratton Community Association, I explained what was coming up. They were 100% behind me. So I can't say I've had people knocking on my door demanding we get back to work, but I'm pretty sure if you ask people, they'll tell you we should get back to work.
Councillor Perry.
I have no more questions.
Thank you. Councillor Perry, good question.
Can I ask a question through you to Mr. CEO, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor? What is the average time of meetings for other top 5 councils, such as Joondalup, Wanneroo, Stirling, etc., on average, in regards to ordinary meeting, please?
I'd have to take it on notice, Councillor, but most of them are transacting their business well within the 2-hour limit.
Yep. The longest I could find the other day was an hour and 45 minutes from a meeting at Stirling, who have a cap on theirs at 2 hours. Yep. And they have 2 council meetings a month. Councillor Kiley, last one, I'm going to move on because
Mayor, just a question through you. I just want clarification around the 1.5 metre rule. That the information put out on our desk still shows the 1.5 avoid close contact with others. I just want to know whether that is still current under Phase 4.
Well, when I had a look at the Health Department website today, there was a very clear video that said wash your hands, maintain social distancing at 1.5, cover when you cough, etc., etc. It's still on their website. Councillor, you can waive all the paperwork.
Well, I'll just move amendment, if I could, Mayor, then. I'd like to amend that motion 1 to include maintain current seating, respecting a 1.5 metre distance, both within the throughout the chamber.
That's motion 5.
No, I think you're saying something different, aren't you, Councillor Colley? If you have a look at motion 5.
I haven't got it in front of me, Mayor. I need to go down to 5.
And 5 says there's a further motion down that council resolve to resume their usual seating position during council, which means we all come back to here, which is impossible to maintain the 1.5 you're talking about.
I'd like to move it in motion 1. If I have a vote for it, I'd like to have it included in that motion. If we still maintain, if we obviously extend everything else as normal, apart from the 1.5 metre rule, we maintain.
Amanda, could you just clarify for that, please, if possible?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry, that's very loud. So that motion 1 of Councillor Johnson's deals with the suspension of the meeting procedures local law. There is a clause in the meeting procedures local law that is currently suspended by council. The clause relates to members occupying their own seats. If councillors want to continue to have a 1.5 metre distance, we do need to be able to change your seating arrangements as you currently are. So we would need for that clause in the meeting procedures local law to continue to be suspended, which I believe is what Councillor Kiley is referring to.
Okay. Councillor Jones, and this will be the last one.
Thank you. I've got a question to Councillor Johnson.
He said just now that 5 others are exercising their leadership. Does that mean the rest of us are not working at all?
I think what I said was, through calling this special meeting, we are exercising our leadership.
Yeah, I was just trying to get my head around it because, Amanda, Miss Albright, whether I'm wrong or not, I would have thought that what Councillor Kiley wants to do should be dealt with when we address motion 5. Am I correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, in both motions, this would need to be addressed. So I would propose the following amendment with Councillor Kiley's agreement, of course, that the Council resolve to resume the full City of Swan meeting procedures local law with the exception of clause 4.1, members to occupy own seats, so that the 1.5 metre distancing can be maintained. I think that that's the amendment that Councillor Kiley is looking for.
That would suffice, Mayor, and I appreciate Councillor Amanda Albrecht's input into that. Thank you.
What was the input? What was the section again? Sorry.
4.1.
4.1. Thank you. It's an amendment, Mr Mayor. Well, it's got to be.
Is that what you're right with that?
Members can.
Okay, is it the right with the mover and the seconder?
I mean, I don't actually understand where you're getting... Where is this motion, actually? There's nothing on the table here. Where are you reading it from? Can you please...
Item 1, Councillor Kiley just moved an amendment for the first
I
motion
know
moved by
that,
Councillor
but
Johnson.
there's nothing on my table about it. There's nothing on my table
He
about
just moved
8.1.
an amendment and it's on the screen.
I know, but I'd like to see what 4.1 is. Where's point 4?
4 point longer than Ms Albright.
Can you please point it out to me?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's in the agenda on diligent boards.
Yes, and what page? Because I can't find it. Sorry. Page 6, thank
Page
you.
6,
That's all I'm asking for is some direction on that because I don't have it before me and there's been no instructions on that. So we've got 8.14. This doesn't look anything like what's on the board, I'm sorry. Or on the, up there on the, on my...
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Mr. Albright.
When the agenda was drafted, City officers moved Councillor Johnson's reasons for his motion to the bottom of the motion. Councillor Johnson has asked us to put them back for the purposes of Council considering them, so that's why we've popped them up on the board there for you. But the motion is still the same as what is contained in the agenda. It's just the reason that is further down below in the motion.
So I'll go back to us. It's okay with the mover. I just need to know it's okay with the second of that amendment being included.
I'm sorry, but I do not have in front of me the same as what's on the board, and I do not know what it is I'm seconding. I've got to tell you, this is not the same as what is up there. So I don't even know what we're referring to. And
Well,
there's a problem with that.
I apologise for that, Councillor Catalano. We did try to change it so it made, but Councillor, the assistance of Councillor Johnson, this is the way he wanted it presented. That's the way it's presented. It's his motion. So if you've got a problem with it...
Can we go down then? Please scroll down to clause 4.
No, I think we're referring to the meeting procedures local law, Jane.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So after clause 4.1a...
Okay, you're talking about that. Right, okay, thank you for that. Well, then I know what I'm talking about now.
Councillor Congerton?
Look, I know you said it was the last question.
I really want to move on with this, yes.
I understand that you do. I'd like to ask the CEO, please, could you tell me when this special meeting request was provided to the city? Because until I got it on diligent boards last night, when I got home from the citizenship ceremony that I was at, Councillor Johnson, it hadn't appeared anywhere. And I understand, and subsequent question too that could be answered, and I understand that the 5 councillors that put in the request for the special meeting, is they were the only ones that contacted. Did you not bother to contact all of us, your fellow councillors?
Mr CEO, do you wish to answer the first question?
The first question is, Mr Mayor, I have a email dated Sunday the 19th of July at 6:17 p.m. I never saw it till later that evening, and I was away last week, as you're well aware.
And the other question, Councillor Johnson will answer that, then we need to move on.
Didn't hear the question.
Would you like to repeat it, Councillor Connerton?
Did you contact other councillors?
I sent it to the CEO because it's the CEO's job to distribute notice of a special meeting, not mine.
Well, with all due respects, Councillor, you managed to send every other email to everybody. And one would have thought, you're talking about a special meeting, that we would at least have the courtesy to be advised.
Councillor Congerton, did you send me the rescission motion you made on 88.5 FM?
That's enough, councillors. We will be moving on. Councillor Catalano, I'll get back to you as the second. Are you wishing...
Yes, well, thank you for that, because
okay
now I actually know what we're talking about. We're talking about the 4.1 of the Meetings Procedures Local Law, and then I'm happy to accept that amendment. Yes,
Okay.
thank you for that.
Councillors, that is the amendment for the first motion on the board. Now, Councillor Catalano, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Well, it might only be 7 weeks, but it certainly does feel like 11 weeks. And I'm sure that if it feels like 11 weeks to me, it feels like 11 weeks to most people out there in the community. And I think that it's just expectations. Yes, I think there are expectations. There's no COVID in Western Australia. There's no local, spread of the disease. If there's any, it's coming in from overseas. It's all contained. There's not really a lot of reasons that I can see as to why we should not be normalising our business and showing everyone in the community, and that's all of the community, that we're back to business. And I think that also assists with the efficient running of the city. I think it will help staff, because staff will be able to get back to business as normal. It'll assist us because we'll get back to business as normal. It'll assist people who want to come to these meetings and make deputations. And I think that that's time we do that, because the other thing about it is that we don't know if or when we may have to close down again. So I think it's a good idea to get back on track and, as they say, make hay while the sun shines, because we might find ourselves with our backs against the wall if we have to lock down again, and we haven't had any period in between that could be considered normal business. So let's get back to business. And I do just want to finally say, it's not about personalities. It's not about casting aspersions on the work that anybody does in this chamber. No, it is not. It is about all of us just getting back to normal, showing everybody that we are getting back to normal, and that we're carrying on business as we have always done, that the special time is over, and that that will actually efficiently will assist with efficient running of council business, and assist with staff operational running of business. So yes, that's it. Let's just do it. Let's get on with it, because we don't know when we're going to have to lock down again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canelo. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Parry.
I'll be reasonably quick, Mr Mayor. Right now, WA is still in a state of emergency. That's a fact. We're still in a state of emergency. We still have border protections. We still have everything else like that. And the problem with COVID-19, or the coronavirus, it's asymptomatic. Basically means it can be transported without other people knowing what it is. It transports quickly, and it can kill people. And I don't want to be held responsible in regards to... I just don't want to be held responsible in regards to... I want to protect the community as much as we can. Now, you may laugh, Councillor Johnson. That's not very funny. I don't think so. Like, as soon as you put public health at risk, that's a major risk. And by the way, I like to point out as well, if you catch public transport because of close contact, that could be a risk. Also, if you're involved with nursing, hospitals, etc., that's also a risk. We just don't know who's in contact with who. And that's a major factor as well, because it can transport very quickly as well. So that's what we need to protect as well, unfortunately. So we also note that the health department also says the spread of the coronavirus from person to person is usually between close contacts. Close contacts has been defined as those people who have face-to-face contact with a person infected with the virus for at least 15 minutes, or has been the same closed space for at least 2 hours with an affected person. And the final point is this, councillors, just look at Victoria, how quickly things can change. That's a major problem as well. Victoria had very little cases just 2 weeks ago. Now it's over 500. That's how quick it changes around here. This is not a muck around. This is like the Spanish flu. It's like other diseases that we've had previously. And in those times as well, they've changed council meetings, state parliament in Tasmania was changed as well. So there's been cases previously, and also, there's been cases galore in regards to this when we do this, even in Asian countries as well, through SARS as well. Policies have been changed. So right now, let's look after the community. That's the first rule, and then we'll sort out the meetings later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So firstly, I'd like to ask all councillors to refrain from making personal accusations about other councillors' workloads or places of employment or anything like that. This is not personal. This is about us all doing our best. We're all just doing our best in a difficult time, like everyone in Australia and the world. So I have in front of me from the agenda the Department of Local Government WA website, the easing of restrictions. So it says, if our venue cannot accommodate all council members and necessary officers, we could consider a mixture of in-person and electronic attendance until further restrictions are eased. Awesome. So we can continue this seating arrangement. We can have our social distancing, which I believe we need to still continue with as per recommendations. And we have staff who the CEO needs to protect and ensure that they are not placed at any greater risk than they need to be. Therefore, I believe that the CEO is well capable of directing staff to attend online, which I know all the staff are able to manage. So there's one situation we can manage. Now, I'm concerned about us restricting the meetings to 2 hours. It's nice to get home early. I was able to say to the kids, hey kids, I might be home before bedtime tonight. Great. I can read you a story, but this is not about me. This is about working for the community. This is about doing our duty. Parliament is still sitting. Has Parliament stopped sitting? Has Parliament cancelled briefings? No, they have not restricted their time, and I'm not sure that any other council have restricted their time during COVID-19. We have a massive agenda. Do you know, I actually got a paper edition this week. I never have a paper edition because I'm online only. And look at the size of it. We're expected to get through this in 2 hours. We can't possibly have effective debate. What's happening is we're reducing the amount of speakers, we're reducing public participation. People are submitting online deputations, which is wonderful, but people still want to be able to come in person and give deputations. With the restricted amount of time, people aren't able to come in and give deputations. We are not able to speak for our full amount of time. The Mayor is having to cut us off. He's having to say, sorry, no more speakers. We need to keep this meeting short. Sorry, councillors, this is the last speaker. We need to have effective debate. That is why we are here. It is the whole purpose of why we nominated for council, to represent our constituents. I want to represent my constituents effectively through proper debate, through listening to deputation statements and other councillors' debate and staff comment. So I really believe we need to return to normal meeting procedures, and that's a restriction of a 4-hour limit. 4 hours and then we adjourn the meeting. So that is what we should be doing, because even then it is difficult to get through the agenda. Now, should this motion fail, I foreshadow another motion to follow the City of Stirling and the way that they manage their meetings, of having, as the CEO just mentioned, they have a 2-hour limit, 2 council meetings per month. So that's, if this motion fails, that's what we'll be considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Speaker against the motion? Further speakers for? Councillor Kiley.
Mayor, I'll be quick because we're short of time. Councillors, this virus deserves our respect, and I think that's been said numerous times throughout the world at the moment. I agree with Councillor Parry. This is a virus that could return very quickly, and we have to be very careful. However, and that's the reason why I wanted to put in the 1.5 metre social distancing there. I don't think we need to abide by a 2-hour limit. If we're going to get it from each other within, 4 hours, and I don't see no difference in how we, 2 hours being any different there. So I will support this motion as long as we've got this 1.5 metre distancing in place. If things in the state get worse and we end up with virus spreading as we've seen in Victoria, then we can certainly go back and change that back to how it was before. But we'll be supporting this.
Councillor, speakers against the motion. Councillor Lucas.
As briefly as I can, we've got to deal with the facts, councillors. I heard Councillor Catalano say there is no COVID in WA. Well, there is. In fact, there's an active case in the city of Swan and 14 others known in the state. If and when we have to close down again, well, why would you open up only to close down again? I think we're being very prudent, very sensible in the way we've been managing it, because there is a lot at risk. I heard the other day that we may have 2 accommodation facilities in the city of Swan, which will be supporting fly-in, fly-out workers from other states. That's a bit of a concern to me. And Councillor Scanlon said, well, Parliament's not running. Well, guess what? Federal Parliament is in recession again until August sometime, because it's too big a risk to get all those parliamentarians. Now, obviously, Parliament House in Canberra is a lot bigger than us, but they have identified the risk of having people come in close contact with each other. So when we debate, let's get the facts right. I would rather be prudent. I don't think it would take us 7 or 11 weeks to get back in order once we know that the threat has diminished to such a point that we can. So I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas.
Councillor Lucas, I'd just like to point out that I was referring to WA Parliament, just as a little correction.
Okay, we got that.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Yep, thank you, councillors. And just to clarify Councillor Lucas' statement, the hotels he talks about are the Vines and Quest Midland. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be brief as well. As a nurse in a public hospital during this epidemic, I have been on the receiving end. I work on a COVID ward. I have from the beginning. We have set up and also reduced our area for COVID transmission for COVID patients. We were the accepting ward for COVID patients. So if anyone would like to speak regarding COVID, I'm probably the person in the room that you might want to ask. We are the receiving ward at Midland Hospital. I am not speaking on behalf of the hospital, but I can tell you that we had a reduction, and if not a very, very blessed, if you like, or fortunate reduction in patients coming in. We are in a very good position currently at the moment. Everything we are doing here at Council at the moment is as is required in a hospital. We've downgraded now to scrub uniforms as opposed to PPE throwaway uniforms. Everything we do when we walk in this chamber, from hand sanitising, hand washing and social distances, is all we can do as public members at this stage. There is nothing more that you can do. No one is aware of who will or who will not catch it, which children are contagious and spreading it through the community. At this stage, we have been very, very fortunate. I don't believe that anything we're doing in the chamber will put us at a more predominant risk of catching COVID. So I would support this motion to go back to normal hours of operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Johnson, close the debate, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, during debate, one councillor spoke about the dangers of public transport. If you read the closure and restriction directions document, Public transport is an exception to the 2 square metre rule, so sorry about that one. And the next one is Parliament. So Parliament is also an exception to the gatherings direction. So councillors, WA Parliament is working full-time, public transport is working full-time. There is a long, long list here of exceptions even to the 2 square metre rule. So councillors, it would be a bit of an embarrassment if we are an exception to the exception to the exception, where we are taking an extreme risk mitigation measure that is not seen in other members in other parts of the community. Councillors, there's no 2-hour limit. I think it's time for us to get back to work. So please support your community, recognise what they're expecting of you, and vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? Motion is lost. Now, councillors...
I've foreshadowed.
Just quickly, well, we've got 4 others to get through, council. We also now have our deputy here, and I think it's...
Mr Mayor, when we go to foreshadowed motion, you need a new notice of motion. I don't believe you can foreshadow a motion from a motion. There was Councillor Scanlon.
Ms Albright, can you clarify that?
I don't think you can change it.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we're not able to transact business at a council meeting that's not listed on the agenda or that is not related to the purpose of the meeting. I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of Councillor Scanlon's foreshadowed motion, but it would need to relate to the purpose as listed for this meeting, and I don't think it was listed.
You've got all the other items to do with this one.
Foreshadowed motion to what?
My motion is for the council to continue the restrictions we currently have in place on council meetings and to add a second council meeting of the month. So I have 2 council meetings every month to make up the time we're lost with the restrictions.
Question, if I may, Mayor.
Councillor Henderson.
Does that mean that with agenda forums we would ultimately have no briefings?
Well, there'll be 3 council meetings, but Mr Albright,
That's what it means.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think that would be outside of the purpose of this meeting. That motion, I think it would need to be a notice of motion brought to the next council meeting.
Yep, I think so. Okay. Councillors, we have our deputation who's arrived. I think it's only fair that we probably hear her deputation, given that she's come to speak on 8.2.
Are you going to get to 8.2?
Well, it's a little bit unfair, I think, Mr CEO. Yep. This lady comes in and doesn't get to speak. So, councillors, are we okay with that? I think it's only fair. Okay. If you could show in, please, Amanda.
Thank you all for letting me come and have a deputation.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I would like to make sure that with the JDAP recommendations, number 11.11, stating that the noise management plan to be prepared by a suitably qualified consultant and submitted to the city prior to the building permit being lodged. I would like I'd like to be a part of that due to the fact that the noise that the daycare centre is going to have impacting my front balcony and front yard will be more than what the acoustics. They couldn't comply with the acoustics report when they submitted the plans for to JDAP and for approval. So I don't know how they're going to be able to put things into place. I brought my property and house there for the lifestyle, for the fact that it was a street that was actually sold Brabham. It was a beautiful home. They got my neighbours who have been approached by the developer have been paid or will be paid if this all goes through $1,050,000. I had a offer in on my house today to sell it for $830,000, and as soon as they found out the daycare was going ahead, they rejected it. They said they'd cancel the thing. So I'm now emotionally, as you can see, I'm quite emotional. I can't sell my house, and I don't have the right to sit on my front balcony and enjoy my property that I brought for that reason. I did contact every single councillor and invited them to be on my balcony today. Thank you to Andrew and thank you to Patty for coming to see what I'm trying to discuss with you today, to make sure that I have somewhere that I can enjoy, that I've worked very hard for. I FIFO'd for many years to have my house, and the acoustics of this need to be really taken into consideration and make sure that people like myself can enjoy my house without having to listen to 82 screaming children. I'm not saying that they're all screaming. I've got a grandson. I love my grandson dearly. I really do, but I don't want to have a daycare beside me when I want to sit down and enjoy my front balcony. What's to say someone's going to come past and say to me about, you know, why am I standing there looking at their children, you know? This is just a whole part of it. I know that Andrew's brought into the acoustic side of it. There's much more to it that we need to look at as a council, because as a ratepayer, I trust you guys to do what's right by us, and I trust my council to actually listen to people like myself who have an issue like this. If they can't comply or come up with a proper management for the acoustics, I would like to know what council's going to do about it. I would like to know how we're going to address it, because if their acoustics are over and they can't comply within reason and the management plan put forward is not within reason, what is council going to do? How are you going to support me? How are you going to support my lifestyle? Because I know that every single one of you probably would not like it to be beside you and to be sitting here like this. So I'm just asking that this is a really important thing. The noise part of it, for me, is I brought that for enjoyment of that area. Semi-rural, it's been rezoned. You know, I love my front garden. Patty, you seen today? My trees, I love it. The only place it's not going to have trees is there, you know. So please be very thoughtful about when the management plan comes in for the acoustics. Understand that there is more to all this as well with the traffic as well. We counted between 60 and 85 cars in 5 minutes. When they put this proposal together for JDAP and for council, their figures were nothing like that. 40 cars per hour. There's a massive difference. I did ask for an independent and a second traffic management to be done to actually see how much was there and peak times. Car doors, 6:30 in the morning. You can't tell me that there's not going to be a mother that's going to try and get her child in 10 minutes before to beat 10 minutes of traffic. So the car doors are going to start slamming well before 6:30. You've got car doors that will just echo through. You've got cars that will be pulling up, blocking my driveway so I can't get in and out. There will be cars that won't be able to park. Horns, you know, people will be pulling up, can't get past, so they'll be tooting horns. There's a lot more to it. Please just think about the big overall picture and understand that this could be you living beside you or being built beside you.
Thank you, Ms Blackett. Okay, councillors, we've got a few minutes of questions, if there's any questions of Ms Blackett. Councillor Coley.
Through you, Mayor, thank you. Amanda, thanks for coming in, and I'm sorry about the sale falling through today. That's very unfortunate. It probably takes me to the next question. What if this childcare centre goes through next door to you? What sort of loss are you looking at on your property? Is a percentage or a total value?
I was informed by I can't think right now, but an evaluator that it could be anything, you know, between $100,000 and $300,000 because people don't want to live beside a daycare.
And where do you think the appropriate place to have a childcare centre is within Brabham?
There's numerous areas that are not even built yet. Put it towards that. You know, people buy and pay a price to live beside something like that. Put it in the commercial area where noise from children are not going to be an issue. Put it beside the school. Mums that have got 2 kids, daycare and school right beside each other. Great. It's handy to have. On the main street that sells Brabham on a very, very busy intersection is not appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, councillors? No? Of staff, okay. Councillor Lucas. Thank you, Ms Blackett. You can have a seat if you wish. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. The last couple of comments by Ms Blackett and the question by Councillor Kiley, hasn't this daycare centre already been approved, but not by this council, but by JDAP, Mr Russell?
Through Mr Mayor, that's correct. It's already been approved by the then Metro East Joint Development Assessment Panel and not by the council.
Thank you.
Question to staff, Mayor.
Councillor Coley.
Given that it has been approved by JDAP, is there a conflict of interest from those members who may have approved it within the JDAP process? Those I'm not sure who actually sat on it, but I believe that there are councillors present who may have approved or given their approval. Is there a conflict of interest in them participating in this vote?
I don't believe so, because right at the very start of the JDAP we raised those questions and they said they're two separate entities. But we're happy to declare an impartiality if that's the case, to say that we participated in the JDAP as we would do if we participated at council and went back to JDAP in the same scenario.
Just a further question then. I may have got it wrong in respect of the acoustic management plan having to come back to council. I just want to confirm that is the case, that it can be done under delegated authority, and that's what would normally be done. Is that correct?
Mr Russell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it's a technical issue. It's a matter of compliance, and if I can indulge to make mention of the concerns of Ms Blackett, the proponent needs to submit a management plan for the operation of the childcare facility that complies with the noise regulations. And if their proposal, as they have submitted it, cannot comply with the noise regulations, then they will need to modify their proposal to comply.
Thank you, Mr Russell.
Further question, what would be the situation where they couldn't modify it to the extent that the neighbours couldn't have peaceful enjoyment of their property?
Mr Russell.
Through Mr Mayor, I think we need to separate two things. The concept of peaceful enjoyment of the property, which is a subjective view of a neighbour, and compliance objectively with the noise regulations, which is a quantitative standard. They may well be two different things. The condition is in relation to compliance with the noise regulations, and I accept that mere compliance with the noise regulations may or may not satisfy Ms Blackett or anyone else that lives there, but they're two different things.
Further question, is it true that a traffic impact statement also has to be approved under delegated authority?
Mr Russell.
Through Mr Mayor, all of the conditions that are imposed on the JDAP approval to the satisfaction of the City of Swan are usually as operational matters dealt with by staff, yes.
Just further question, at last week's agenda forum you said that council could have any report brought back for approval by council. You had said it in relation to the Cleanaway facility, and I believe that was the instigation for this motion, that council could actually view this acoustic management plan. So there's no difference from your point of view last week. That's what I'm just confirming.
I think what I said is being confused, Mr Mayor. I said the normal practice would be it's an operational matter, and it's similar to the question that was put around a building permit. It does not mean that the council cannot consider it. What we're saying is ultimately the matter of compliance isn't really a discretionary consideration. You either comply or you do not. You can present it. What we're saying ordinarily it would not be so.
I will amend my motion, Mayor, to include the a traffic impact statement as well as the acoustic management plan within that motion.
Well, you can do that, Councillor, but I doubt that we're going to get it to it today. But you're welcome to do that. Councillor Keller, one last quick one.
Oh, yes, thank you. So I'm just wondering, what's the procedure then for bringing that back to council in terms of scrutinising the management plan for the noise if it doesn't comply?
Through Mr Mayor, very simply, if the council makes a resolution that it be so referred, it will be so referred.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Ms Blackett. Thank you for coming down. Okay, councillors, we're now at 5:25. We can persevere one more item, but I have doubts about getting through it.
Well, Mayor, if I could just add in the traffic impact statement as well as the acoustic management plan into my motion.
Well, like I said, we're not dealing with it because it's further down in the agenda, Councillor, so I took Ms Blackett as a deputation. She would have normally done at the start of the meeting, but given the fact that she turned up, I think we had to give her courtesy to turn up. So you can still amend it prior to when we get to it at some point. Yeah. Councillor Lucas, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we adjourn this meeting to Monday, the 27th of July, starting at 5:30 p.m. And the reason is that we have an agenda forum starting in 5 minutes, and I don't believe we can satisfactorily deal with any other items on this agenda tonight. That will give everyone a 5-minute comfort break before we have 6 or 7 deputations at the agenda forum. Thank you.
Okay. I have a seconder.
I'll second that. I was about to do the same thing.
Second with Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that carried, Councillor. So this meeting is carried over to Monday evening at 5:30.